The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. Marlo Chen, 28 years old, stepped into the most breathtaking penthouse she'd ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city sprawling 60 floors below. Everything gleamed, marble, chrome, impossible wealth. The kind of wealth that made her cleaning service uniform feel even cheaper than it was. She'd taken this job 3 months ago, after the art gallery she'd worked at for 6 years closed down. Bills didn't wait for pride to catch up. Her daughter's medical bills from 3 years ago still haunted her bank account, even though her daughter was gone. "You're early. I appreciate punctuality." The voice cut through the silence, smooth, calculated, like a surgeon's scalpel. Thaddeus Vale emerged from a hallway bathed in afternoon light. He was 42, wearing an immaculate three-piece suit with silver threading at his temples. There was something unsettling about the way he moved, too still, too controlled, like a predator conserving energy. He didn't smile. He observed, his pale gray eyes cataloging her every detail. "Marlo Chen. The agency sent your credentials. Former art conservator, now cleaning penthouses. Quite the descent." She stiffened but kept her voice professional, the way she'd learned to do over months of swallowing her pride. "Bills don't care about my resume. Where should I start?" He gestured vaguely toward the expansive living space. "Everywhere. I'm hosting an event tomorrow night. The space must be immaculate. You have 6 hours. I'll be in my study, 3rd door on the left. Don't disturb me under any circumstances." He walked away with measured steps, then paused without turning back. The silence stretched, deliberate. "And Miss Chen? Touch nothing that isn't dust or dirt. I value my privacy. I trust we understand each other." It wasn't a question. It was a warning. He disappeared down the hallway. A door closed with a heavy thunk that echoed through the apartment like a vault ceiling. Marlo exhaled slowly and set down her supply caddy. The apartment was eerily perfect, almost unlived in. No family photos on the walls. No personal touches. No clutter. Just expensive contemporary art that probably cost more than she'd make in 5 years, and cold minimalism that felt more like a museum than a home. She began working, vacuuming the pristine carpets that barely looked like they'd been walked on, dusting surfaces that held no dust. The silence was oppressive. Most of her clients played music or had the television on. This place had nothing. Just the whisper of the air conditioning and her own breathing. As she worked, she noticed things. The books on the shelves were all about philosophy, psychology, occult practices, heavy topics arranged with obsessive precision. The art on the walls depicted strange, unsettling scenes: a woman falling from a building, a man disappearing into fog, faces dissolving into shadow. An hour passed. Then 90 minutes. As she passed the study door with her vacuum, she glanced through the crack. Thaddeus sat at his desk, utterly still, staring at multiple computer screens. He hadn't moved. Not once. It was like watching a statue. The screens flickered with images she couldn't quite make out, photographs, documents, charts. She moved on quickly, an uncomfortable chill running down her spine. When she entered the master bedroom 2 hours into the job, the atmosphere changed. Everything was white: sheets, walls, carpet, even the art. Sterile. Clinical. Like a hospital room, or an operating theater. The bed was made with military precision. Not a wrinkle anywhere. She began dusting the nightstand, working carefully. Her cloth caught on the drawer handle, pulling it slightly open. Inside was a small, leather-bound notebook. She hesitated. Looked toward the door. Listened. The silence was oppressive, thick enough to choke on. Every instinct told her to close the drawer and walk away. But something else, maybe curiosity, maybe the universe trying to save her life, made her reach for it. She opened the notebook. Her blood turned to ice. Pages filled with names. Handwritten in immaculate script, the kind of penmanship that belonged to another era. Each name had a date beside it. And a red line crossed through most of them, drawn with such force that the pen had nearly torn the paper. She flipped through the pages, her hands beginning to shake. Different names, different dates, spanning years. 5 years' worth of names. Then she reached the current page and saw it. 1. Marlo Chen, Cleaning Service, Jan 11". Tomorrow's date. Below her name were details, her address, her schedule, the route she took to work. Where she bought coffee. When she visited her daughter's grave. Her hands trembled violently now. She flipped backward through the pages. Dozens of names, all crossed out. Beside some were newspaper clippings, yellowed and carefully preserved. She recognized some of the headlines. Local woman missing after evening walk. Teacher disappears without trace. Still no leads in disappearance of accountant. Her mind raced. This couldn't be real. It had to be some kind of art project, some disturbing creative endeavor. But the clippings were real. The dates matched the names in the book. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands and began photographing pages frantically. The flash was off, but her hands shook so badly that the photos came out blurred, barely readable. She tried again, forcing her hands steady. Footsteps in the hallway. Slow. Measured. Coming closer. Panic flooded through her. She shoved the notebook back into the drawer, slammed it shut, and grabbed her cleaning supplies. She was dusting a lamp, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might explode, when Thaddeus appeared in the doorway. Making progress? She could barely look at him. When she did, she saw those pale gray eyes studying her with disturbing intensity. Her voice cracked slightly when she answered. Yes. Almost finished in here. Thaddeus stepped inside slowly, each footfall deliberate. His eyes scanned the room with predatory precision, taking in every detail, every surface, every corner. He was looking for something out of place. You seem unsettled. Is everything all right? Just warm. The vacuum's been running a while. Silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. Marlo felt sweat forming at the base of her neck despite the air conditioning. Thaddeus moved toward the nightstand, inches from where the notebook was hidden. She watched him run his finger along its edge, checking for dust. His movements were precise, almost ritualistic. Remarkable attention to detail, he said softly. Most people miss this area entirely. But not you. You're thorough. He opened the drawer. Her heart stopped. She prepared to run, to scream, to fight. Thaddeus removed a pair of reading glasses. Placed them carefully on his nose. Examined them. Closed the drawer with a soft click. The kitchen next, he said, turning to face her. It requires special attention. I'm particular about the kitchen. He left, his footsteps fading down the hallway. The study door opened and closed. Marlo stood frozen for a full minute, her legs trembling so badly she thought she might collapse. She leaned against the wall, trying to control her breathing, trying to think. She needed to leave. Right now. Just grab her things and go. But if she left early, he'd know something was wrong. He'd know she'd found something. And if what she suspected was true, if that notebook meant what she thought it meant, running might be the worst thing she could do. She needed evidence. Real evidence. Something the police couldn't ignore. 30 minutes later, she was in the kitchen, cleaning with mechanical movements while her mind raced. The kitchen was massive, all stainless steel and black marble, with appliances that looked like they'd never been used. She wiped down counters, organized already organized spaces, and tried to figure out her next move. She pulled out her phone again. Still no signal. Strange. She'd had full bars in the elevator. She moved around the kitchen, watching the signal indicator. Nothing. He was blocking it somehow. A jammer, maybe. The photos she'd managed to take were too blurred to read most of the names clearly. She needed clearer evidence. Something concrete. She moved to the massive refrigerator, a commercial-grade stainless steel behemoth. She opened it, ostensibly to clean the shelves. Inside was pristine, barely any food. Some bottled water. A container of what looked like meal replacement drinks. Nothing that suggested anyone actually lived here. Then she noticed something odd. The back wall of the refrigerator was slightly off-center, misaligned with the rest of the unit by maybe half an inch. She reached out and pushed it. It swung inward on hidden hinges, revealing a hidden door. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She glanced back toward the study. The door was still closed. She could hear nothing. She stepped through the refrigerator into darkness. Her hand found a light switch. Fluorescent lights flickered to life, revealing a small, climate-controlled room. No windows. Shelves lined every wall from floor to ceiling, and on those shelves were items that made her stomach turn. Trophies. Driver's licenses in plastic sleeves, each one showing a smiling face frozen in time. Jewelry, watches, rings, necklaces, each piece tagged with a name and date. A pair of glasses. A shoe. A phone. A scarf. Personal items that people would never willingly give up. She recognized some of the faces from the notebook. The teacher who'd disappeared. The accountant. A young man who'd been reported missing last spring. On a workbench in the center of the room were detailed plans. Surveillance photos, dozens of them, showing people in their daily routines. Walking to work. Buying groceries. At the gym. The photos were marked with times, locations, patterns of behavior. And there, in a red folder, she found a file labeled Marlo Chen, in that same immaculate handwriting. With trembling hands, she opened it. Her entire life was documented. Photos of her leaving her apartment, entering the cleaning service office, visiting the cemetery where her daughter was buried. Copies of her bank statements. Her medical records. Her daughter's death certificate. Even transcripts of her therapy sessions from 2 years ago. How had he gotten those? There was a psychological profile, written in clinical language. Subject displays moderate depression, persistent grief, social isolation. Minimal support network. Financially vulnerable. Fits the archetype perfectly. Beside the file was a wall map covered with pins and red string connecting locations across the city. Each pin had a date and a name. The pattern was complex, some kind of geometric design, or maybe astrological. She wasn't sure. But every location marked with a red pin matched a name in the notebook. Tomorrow's date was circled in red on a calendar tacked to the wall. The location, this penthouse. Written beside it, winter solstice completion. Subject 43. The cycle completes. Behind her, a soft voice spoke, making her jump so violently she knocked over a jar of buttons. You weren't supposed to see this until tomorrow. She spun around. Thaddeus stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the kitchen light. He was no longer pretending. His expression was calm, almost serene, but his eyes held something cold and ancient. Stay away from me. She backed away, her hands searching blindly behind her for anything she could use as a weapon. You won't make it to the elevator, Marlowe. I've locked it remotely. The stairs are sealed with magnetic locks. The windows are bulletproof. There's no one within shouting distance. I own the 3 floors below this one, and they're empty. This building is mine. I designed it specifically for my work. Why? The word came out as a whisper. Why me? Thaddeus stepped into the room, and she saw he was carrying a small black case. He set it on the workbench with care. Because you fit the pattern perfectly. January 11th, tomorrow, is significant in numerology. The numbers in your name, when calculated correctly, align with the cycle. But more importantly, your loss. He gestured to her file. Your daughter. Kira. 5 years old. The accident. The guilt you still carry, even though it wasn't your fault. That grief, Marlowe, that profound, soul-deep grief, it's what I need. Her eyes flashed with fury through her fear. You don't get to talk about her. You don't get to say her name. Grief is the most powerful human emotion, Thaddeus continued, as if lecturing a student. More powerful than love, than joy, than even fear. It changes the chemical composition of the brain, alters the electromagnetic field around the body. Each person on that list carried profound loss. A dead child. A murdered spouse. A sibling who died because of them. That specific type of grief, guilt mixed with love mixed with unbearable pain, it's necessary. For the work. He opened the black case. Inside was a syringe filled with clear liquid, along with other medical supplies arranged with obsessive precision. This will be painless, he said softly. Far more merciful than life has been to you, honestly. I've studied your finances. Your depression medication. Your search history, yes, I accessed that too. Those 3 a.m. searches for, does it ever get better and, how to cope with losing a child. You're not living, Marlowe. You're barely surviving. I'm offering release. Peace. Her fear crystallized into something else. Something hot and fierce. Rage. You think you know me? Her voice was low, dangerous. You think because you read my files and stalked me for weeks, you understand anything about me? You don't know anything. I know. My daughter is dead. The words exploded from her. She died because a drunk driver ran a red light. She was 5 years old, and she's gone, and every single day I wake up and it hurts. Every single day. But I get up anyway. I go to work. I pay my bills. I visit her grave and I tell her about my day. I'm not barely surviving, I'm fighting. Every day is a fight, and I'm still here. Still standing. That's not weakness. That's strength. Thaddeus tilted his head, studying her with new interest. Fascinating. The profile suggested you'd be more compliant. Your profile is wrong. She grabbed the shelf beside her, the one holding the trophies, and pulled with all her strength. The entire unit was freestanding, not bolted to the wall. It crashed forward with a tremendous sound. Glass shattered. Licenses and jewelry and personal items scattered everywhere. Thaddeus jumped back to avoid being crushed. Marlowe ran. She burst through the refrigerator door back into the kitchen and raced toward the living room. Behind her, she heard Thaddeus emerge from the hidden room, his footsteps quick now, the calm facade cracking. She reached the elevator and jabbed the button frantically. Nothing. Locked, just as he'd said. She ran to the front door, a massive thing of steel and wood. She pulled the handle. It didn't budge. Electronic locks, blinking red. "There's nowhere to go, Marlowe." His voice echoed through the apartment. She looked around frantically. The windows, she ran to them, but they were sealed, and even if she could break them, she was 60 floors up. The balcony door was locked from the outside with another electronic system. She was trapped in a cage designed by her predator. She ran toward the hallway, toward the bedrooms. Maybe she could barricade herself, call for help somehow. But then she remembered, no signal. The jammer. She darted into his study instead and slammed the door, locking it. Her eyes swept the room, searching for anything useful. His computers were on, multiple screens showing security camera feeds from throughout the building. She could see herself on one screen, a bird's-eye view of the study she was currently in. On another screen were building schematics. Her eyes locked onto them. There, a ventilation system. The ductwork was old-fashioned, large enough for maintenance access. Large enough to crawl through. She grabbed a chair and smashed it against the window with all her strength. The glass didn't even crack. Bulletproof, just like he'd said. The chair broke instead. Reinforced, Thaddeus's voice came from outside the door. 3-inch polycarbonate. "I've thought of everything, Marlowe. I always do. That's why I've never been caught." She looked up. In the ceiling was a vent cover. She dragged the desk over, climbed onto it, and began unscrewing the vent cover with a letter opener she'd grabbed. Her hands were shaking, but adrenaline made them fast. The door shuddered. He was breaking it down. The last screw came free. She pulled the vent cover away and hoisted herself up into the darkness. The ventilation shaft was narrow, claustrophobic, and pitch black. Marlowe crawled forward on her hands and knees, the metal cold and unyielding beneath her. Behind her, she heard the study door finally give way with a crash. "The vents lead to only 3 places, Marlowe," Thaddeus's voice echoed through the metal tunnels, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. "The master bedroom, the kitchen, and the maintenance room. I know them all. I've used them before for other purposes." She crawled faster, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The tunnel branched ahead. She had no idea which way to go. Left or right. She chose left, instinct guiding her. The tunnel sloped downward. She half crawled, half slid, her hands scraping against rivets and seams. Behind her, she heard the metallic echo of someone else entering the vents. He was following. But she was smaller. Faster. The tunnel opened suddenly, and she dropped 6 feet through darkness, landing hard on concrete. Pain shot through her ankle. She'd fallen into a maintenance room she hadn't known existed, a forgotten space filled with old equipment, pipes, and electrical panels. And in the corner, covered in dust, was an old service elevator with a metal gate. She limped over to it and pulled the gate open with a screech of metal. Hit the button. Nothing. The elevator was dead, probably hadn't been used in years. She heard movement in the vents above. He was coming. Marlowe tore open the electrical panel on the wall beside the elevator. Years ago, she'd dated an electrician for 8 months. She'd watched him work, asked questions, learned enough to be dangerous. She'd retained just enough knowledge. She started pulling wires, her fingers working frantically. Red to black. Ground to neutral. She was crossing circuits that should never be crossed, probably violating every electrical code in existence. A spark. Then another. The lights in the room flickered. Footsteps on the metal ladder in the maintenance shaft above. He was close. She touched 2 more wires together. A shower of sparks. The smell of ozone. The elevator dinged to life, its ancient machinery groaning. The door to the maintenance room crashed open. Thaddeus entered, no longer calm, his suit jacket gone, his shirt spattered with dust. He saw her. Impressive, Marlowe. Truly. Most people would have frozen. Most people did freeze. He moved toward her. She jumped into the elevator, slammed the gate shut, and hit the button. The elevator lurched, beginning to descend. Thaddeus's hand shot through the metal gate, grabbing her arm. She screamed and tried to pull away, but his grip was like iron. The elevator was moving, but he was being dragged down with it, his feet scrambling for purchase. He wrenched the gate open with his other hand, the old metal giving way, and forced himself inside the moving elevator. They were trapped together in the small space, the elevator descending with agonizing slowness. Thaddeus pulled the syringe from his pocket, uncapping it with his teeth. "This can still be painless," he said. "You're wrong about me," she said. "About everything." She slammed her cleaning spray, still clipped to her belt, into his face. The chemical burned his eyes. He stumbled backward, and she drove her knee into his stomach with all the force of her terror and rage. He bent over, gasping, and the syringe fell from his hand, rolling across the elevator floor. "I'm not surviving," she said, her voice fierce and broken and powerful. "I'm living. For my daughter. Every morning I wake up and choose to live, and that choice is mine, not yours. Every day is for her, and you don't get to take that from me." She hit the emergency stop button. The elevator lurched to a halt, suspended between floors. She looked up and saw the emergency hatch in the ceiling. She jumped, grabbed the edge, and pulled herself up and through, her injured ankle screaming in protest. She emerged onto the top of the elevator car, into the dark vertical shaft. Above her, emergency lights cast a dim red glow. A maintenance ladder ran up the side of the shaft. She grabbed it and began to climb. Below, she heard Thaddeus emerge from the hatch, climbing after her. But he was bigger, heavier, slower. "You're remarkable," he called up, his voice strained, echoing in the shaft. "Perhaps I chose correctly after all. Perhaps you were exactly the one I needed. The one strong enough to complete the cycle." She didn't waste breath responding. She climbed, hand over hand, her muscles burning, her injured ankle barely supporting her weight. The ladder seemed endless. She reached the penthouse level and forced open the elevator doors from inside the shaft using an emergency release lever. She tumbled through into the hallway, gasping. No time to rest. She ran back toward the kitchen, back toward that hidden room. She needed evidence. Real, undeniable evidence that the police couldn't ignore. She burst into the kitchen and through the refrigerator door. In the hidden room, she grabbed armfuls of everything: files, photos, driver's licenses, the notebook. She shoved them into her cleaning supply bag, the canvas straining. Behind her, Thaddeus emerged from the elevator shaft into the penthouse, disheveled, bleeding from a cut on his forehead where he'd scraped against the shaft, his perfect composure completely shattered. "What are you doing?" His voice was raw now, desperate. "Ending your pattern." She pulled out her phone. Away from his jammer, the signal bars flickered back to life. She opened her social media app and hit the live stream button. "My name is Marlo Chen," she said into the camera, her voice shaking but clear. "I'm in the penthouse of Thaddeus Vale, 2200 Obsidian Tower, 60th floor. He's a serial killer. I'm broadcasting evidence now." She dumped the bag's contents in view of the camera. Driver's licenses scattered across the floor, each one a face, a name, a life stolen. Jewelry glinted under the lights. Files spilled open, revealing surveillance photos and detailed plans. "These are his victims. I'm number 43. If I don't survive this, the world knows what he is. The police need to come now." Thaddeus lunged at her with a roar of rage and desperation. They struggled, crashing into the workbench. The phone flew from her hands, skittering across the floor, but the camera kept recording, the live stream still broadcasting. In the fight, Marlo's hand closed around something, a heavy glass art piece from the shelf, one of those expensive contemporary pieces worth thousands. She swung it with every ounce of strength she had left. It connected with the side of Thaddeus's head with a sickening crack. He dropped to the floor and didn't move. Marlo stood over him, gasping, the glass piece still clutched in her hand. For a moment, she couldn't move, couldn't think. Then she dropped the makeshift weapon and grabbed her phone from where it had landed. The live stream was still going. The viewer count was climbing rapidly. 500, 1,000. 5,000, 10,000. Comments were flooding in faster than she could read them. "Send help," she said into the camera, her voice breaking. "Please. 2200 Obsidian Tower, penthouse. Please." In the distance, growing louder, she heard the most beautiful sound in the world, sirens. The next hours passed in a blur. Police swarmed the building. Paramedics checked her over, bruised ribs, sprained ankle, cuts and scrapes, but nothing serious. Detective Kira Zhou, a sharp-eyed woman with kind hands, sat with her in the ambulance while she gave her statement. 23 victims we've confirmed so far, Detective Zhou said, scrolling through the evidence on Marlo's phone. Unsolved cases spanning 7 years. Cases from 3 different states. We'd never connected them because he was so careful. Different methods, different locations, different victim types. But you just closed 24 cold cases. I was just supposed to clean his apartment, Marlo said quietly, staring at her hands. You did, Detective Zhou replied with a slight smile. In more ways than one. Marlo looked up at the penthouse, 60 floors above. Through the windows, she could see crime scene techs photographing everything, collecting evidence. Thaddeus Vale was being wheeled out on a stretcher, handcuffed to the rails, a bandage around his head. He was conscious. As they loaded him into an ambulance, his eyes found hers across the distance. She held his gaze. She didn't look away. She'd survived him. He had no power over her. The ambulance doors closed, taking him away. 1 month later, Marlo sat in her modest but warm apartment, the kind of place that actually felt lived in. Photos on the walls. Books on the shelves. A half-finished mug of tea on the coffee table. She was at her laptop, reading comments on her viral video. 47 million views now. It had been shared across every platform, picked up by every news outlet. Headlines everywhere, cleaning woman uncovers serial killer. The Penthouse Horror. How one woman's courage solved 23 murders. But more than that, the video had sparked something. Other people had come forward with stories of suspicious behavior, strange clients, moments when they'd felt watched or followed. 3 more potential cases were being investigated based on tips that had come in after her stream went viral. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered cautiously. Miss Chen. This is Francesca Wolf from Apex News. We'd like to offer you a position as a consultant on our investigative journalism team. Your instincts, your courage, your ability to remain clear-headed under pressure, these are exactly the qualities we need. We have a department that investigates cold cases and unsolved disappearances. We'd like you to work with them. Marlowe was quiet for a moment. Can I think about it? Of course. We'll send over the details. Take all the time you need. She hung up and walked to a small shelf by the window. On it was a photo of her daughter, Kira, smiling, forever 5 years old, wearing her favorite purple dress. Beside it, Marlowe had placed something new, a printed photo of the first victim's driver's license from Thaddeus's collection. A woman named Iris Moon, age 29, who'd disappeared 7 years ago. Someone's daughter. Someone's friend. Someone who'd been loved and missed. I'm living, baby girl, Marlowe said softly to her daughter's photo. Every day. For both of us. And now maybe I can help other people too. People like Iris. People who didn't get to come home. She touched her daughter's photo gently, then Iris's. A promise made to both of them. Outside her window, the city moved on with its daily rhythm. Life continuing, as it always did. But somewhere in that city, families of the missing were getting answers. Closure. Justice. Because one woman had refused to be victim number 43. The trial was swift. Thaddeus Vale was convicted of 28 counts of first-degree murder. More victims had been discovered in the weeks following his arrest. Marlowe's testimony was instrumental. Her live stream video was played in court, every minute of it. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Life without parole. Today, Marlowe Chen works as a consultant with cold case investigators across the country. She's helped solve 17 unsolved disappearances in the past year. She's learned to trust her instincts, to see patterns others miss, to give voice to the voiceless. She has never cleaned another penthouse. But sometimes, late at night, she thinks about that day. About the choice she made to open that drawer. About fighting back when every instinct said to freeze. About climbing that ladder in the dark, not knowing if she'd make it out alive. She thinks about all the women who didn't make it out. All the names crossed out in red ink. And she keeps working. Keep fighting. Keep living. For her daughter. For Iris Moon. For all of them.